Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Today, we actually have Roshan Thiran, who is a founder and CEO of Leaderonomics. He is also a keynote speaker as well as a leadership author with a social entrepreneurship background and slant. Welcome, Roshan. Thanks for coming in on board.
Great to be talking to you guys. Go ahead, Ernest.
Roshan, can I just ask you a little bit about your background? Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are right now?
So, in a nutshell, I worked for a company called General Electric for almost 14 years or so, in different roles, mostly in the US. I came to Europe for a while in financial services, TV, and then I came back to Malaysia, actually, or Asia, to run the aviation business that we had. We did a big transformation, and somehow when I was back here, turning around our Malaysia shop, I got involved with government. At that time, our Prime Minister, that time Tun Badawi, was interested in cleaning up the country. The whole GLC transformation project, and we had just turned. We bought a small workshop from Malaysian Airlines, completely turned it around. And they used our story essentially to inspire a lot of the GLCs, the Yellow Book, the Orange Book, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So working with Khazanah and a number of folks in McKinsey to really try to figure out how to revamp, and drive the whole GLC turnaround program. And so I got a little bit involved in teaching at that point in time. And I started to really get excited about teaching young people, because I always felt that, the work that we do with companies, you can do so much, with leaders. But values, character, all those are instilled from very young, and you can't change that. So really, how do we change a generation in Malaysia is go back to the foundations, go back to foundational parts of leadership, is working with kids. And so I started an NGO called Leaderonomics. At that time, I moved to a company called Johnson & Johnson, doing something very similar, trying to build global curriculum for Johnson & Johnson, and getting very involved in the leadership development space. In fact, my last job at GE was really in HR. So I moved from running businesses to the HR space and leadership development. And when I was there, I set up this NGO called Leaderonomics, and our goal was to help young, poor kids to access leadership development. Because leadership is like this, you can only learn it from role models, right? And if you don't have a role model, then how do you understand what the possibilities are, right? So enabling these kids to have that exposure and the ability to have role models. And so we started Leaderonomics, and now it's been about 12 years I'm on this journey. So we are a social enterprise. We do stuff. In fact, we are running right now a camp with MDEC, which is our development, sort of a technology development authority, right? So we're running a virtual camp for kids, completely virtual, for the next couple of weeks. The kids are out because of the MCO, and so we're running this, with 26 kids. We are running a lot of stuff virtually. So it's very interesting, although a lot of things, our company is badly affected because we do a lot of training and a lot of leadership development. But the flip side is there's opportunity for us to do what we do, but using virtual tools, just like what we're doing right now, right?
Actually, one of the main reasons why we wanted to speak with you today was because of the topic of two things. The first thing is leadership. The second one is actually leadership in the digital era. Because due to this MCO period, one has no choice but to actually not just experiment, but get good at digital. And I wanted to just touch base with you in terms of how companies across Malaysia, let alone property developers or real estate agents or SMEs, they all have the same challenge. How do you still become an effective leader in the digital era? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I think, one of the things I'm telling my employees the same thing, right? Look, if we've been offering a service and people are using this service, there must have been some value to the service. If there's no value, then nobody's going to pay for that service Now, because of the situation we're in, has that value gone? The service that we offer, is that value not appreciated anymore? Is that not valuable anymore? Because if it is, it will still be useful to have that service, but maybe delivered in a different form, right? So you look at training, right? So we do training, and people, ask trainers to come into classrooms to deliver programs. Now, what we found is that, hey, suddenly there's no more classroom because nobody wants to do face-to-face interactions anymore, right? So for the last 2 months, there's zero revenue in terms of classroom training. And probably in the next 2 months, there's going to be zero revenue. So the question I ask my team is like, look, is the service that we deliver important? Is it crucial for organizations? If it's not, then forget it. This is not a needed service. But what we found is, yes, it is important because there is content, and this is tacit information that resides in the minds of experts and people who are good at certain things that needs to be transferred to the minds and the capability of others so that they can execute their job better. Now, how then delivery has to change. So now we say, okay, let's deliver this virtually. Let's do webinars. Let's do digital simulations. Let's do things in a different form. Now we are semi-ready because we already been talking about this, but there was no market for it. But today, suddenly, there is a need. So we can unleash some of these things and be able to say, maybe our margins are not going to be so big. Maybe that's going to be a much harder revenue because you have to sell volume but the game is still the same. So then the same question go to property developers and go to, folks that are in the property. Is the value of what you do, whether to get, some to broker a deal or whether to provide a certain service, right? Is it going to be needed in the new world? Post-COVID, or in this new world where there's going to be social distancing, just like 9/11, there was an effect with security, with airports, with a whole bunch of things, right? This is going to affect us, that's for sure. So social distancing, it's all going to be a norm, right? Of what we're doing right now. It's going to be normalized into processes and policies, right? But if what we're doing is valuable, and this is where a big question mark comes in, because sometimes we have been doing stuff, like for example, a lot of companies, they say, oh, training is for retention purposes. Oh, I'm just doing it as a holiday, because my guys need a break, send them for some training. Now, those type of things have no value, because that value is no more appreciated, because we don't want to go, on a team building anymore because we're worried of infections and so on. So it doesn't become a retention tool, it becomes a deterrent. So those type of products die. So if you're offering something that is useless now, or was useful somewhat, but maybe for a different reason, it wasn't the training, it was the holiday. You were actually a travel agent, not a training provider, right? So the value of what you're doing has to be understood. And if the value is still appreciated, then your service will be needed. But you need to figure out how to translate that service using digital tools. Or maybe the delivery mechanism might change. So maybe you deliver it this way, maybe now you have to deliver it a different way. Now, the hard part is that there are some people who said, hey, let's try delivering it this way, and they didn't succeed because the market was not ready. Today, a lot of these guys who tried will come back and say, I'm the first to market. And that means they may capture what you've been trying to do. And because you're going to take some time to translate your services into digital mode. So there's going to be some transitional pain that everybody's going to go through. Whether it's, and some opportunists who say, I've already been dabbling in this, let me jump into this in a big way. So there's going to be this that happens in the marketplace, right? So depending on where you are, you got to start saying, okay, no matter what, the market is going to change. Forget about life as normal before. Now, if it becomes normal, that's a bonus. In the meantime, we have to take some steps to say, how can we move to this new market or this new world that's going to exist? And if our service is still valuable, how do we translate that service into the new offering? And that's it, Yeah.
Very well said. Very well said. I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are in terms of training, post-MCO and pre-MCO. Would you say that the value of training is at the same level or even more important moving forward post-MCO?
So one of the things that we have done in the last 2 years, like at least with Leaderonomics, we've started to look at training not as a subject and saying, okay, we want to teach you time management and so on. Why? Because we understand in many companies, right, the way people do training is they will say, the HR guy will go to the line manager and say, line manager, what's wrong? Oh, this guy cannot talk, send him for communication. Oh, this guy lousy at time management, send him for this, send him for that, And so that's how the list of training comes about, by talking to the managers. But what really is important is the company has a business strategy. Here's my business strategy. I want to go here. And today I'm here. Okay. Now, how do I move from here to here? Now, the training that is done actually is not aligned to the business strategy, right? So actually, we're doing all this training, but there's no value to it. So over the last 2 years, we're helping banks and other companies saying, look, what is your business model? What is your business strategy? Let's take that and translate that into learning, capabilities or learning interventions, and then prescribe specific needs. So I want to become a digital bank. Let's say, for example, okay, what does that mean? That means I must build the capacity of my employees to embrace digital, to be able to leverage it, to be able to create tools, to be able to use customer interactions, to be able to map my customer, my entire customer journey mapping digitally, to be able to do all these things, right? So some are technical, some are more operational, some are more soft skills, right? So then once we do that, we are able to map a journey over the next 3 years. We can help to build the capacity of your employees that way. Now, just because I cannot do classroom training, I can run webinars, right? So we're doing that with a number of companies. We're saying, look, don't go for those cheap, free webinars because they're not aligned. Yeah, I can learn time management, but is that what you need to do to build the capacity of your company to try to get, and same with SMEs, right? You have a goal. I don't care about teaching them so that they have skills to go to another competitor. I want to teach them skills to help them succeed in doing my mission. And that's all, right? And so training for us needs to be aligned to the business model or the business strategy. And so that's why when we go to market, we say, look, we're running this webinar series, but it's going to be customized to your end goal, to your journey, right? And now it becomes very applicable. Now there's use. And we say, look, pay a few thousand ringgit per webinar. We're happy to do that because, my 50 employees or my 100 or my 500 employees will get something that's aligned to where the company is going. And to me, that type of business, I feel that we will continue to thrive because every company will want a lot more customized development for the employees, especially their high posts, some of their top talent. And I think it's across the board. So that's where I feel that the HR community has got training wrong, because training is not just throwing, learn this, learn that, learn that. It has to be aligned to what the business direction is.
But do you think that when you actually do a face-to-face training, you're able to actually see the interaction immediately? You're able to assess whether the lesson that you've taught is sunk in, you're thinking about it. But when you do it on a digital basis, whereby if it is on a webinar, there's maybe 50, 60, 100 participants, it's a bit difficult to even know whether they're paying attention to begin with. Is there anything that you're looking at to get a message across?
No. So I think it's not just when you do a webinar, when you do a meeting, if you run a meeting, let's say you're a property, you head up a small property company, and you have like 20 employees, and you might have an employee meeting and you bring your employees, right? So you see in the olden days, right, when you have a even when you have training, what you do is before the training, you will have certain rituals. You go by the pantry, take a glass of coffee. Hey, how are you? What's happening? You check in, right? And you kind of, oh, really, that happened to you? Wow, And then when you go into a class, you kind of talk about things related to the people because you know them, you connect with them. And so when you run a virtual meeting, that's the same problem. When you're running a meeting, you haven't connected with them, you haven't bonded. So what I always say is that, look, training can, but we must understand what are the building blocks, right? So there's bonding, which is how do I connect? Because people are engaged when there's a bond. I trust, there's credibility, there's belief. So how do you do that? So there needs to be a process of checking in. Hey guys, what's happening? With the tools today, right? Zoom and a whole bunch of tools, right? They allow you to call a guy and then boom. Okay, Ernest, what do you think? And then boom, I put you on, and you're like, oh, I'm in front of the entire 400 people. I happened today to one of my colleagues, our CEO Caroline. She's like, on this, and then the instructor like, Caroline, tell me what you think. And she's like, oh, and after that she's like, I'm listening the whole time in case he calls me, right? So there are ways to do it, but I think it's fundamentally instructional design, right? Because when we move something digitally, it's just like Amazon, right? When Amazon moved the book experience by the buying of a book from bookstore to digital, people want to browse books. People want to, check things out. People want to see what other people are saying. They want to talk to someone. And so you got to translate the experience physically into a digital form. So moving things digitally is not just moving something, okay, let's just do a webinar. There's actually a ritual. There's actually process. There's actually a bunch of things that we need to understand. And this is where the difference between a person is science-based. So, one of the things we always push and say, look, there's a science, there's an entire science to how we do things. And so when we do instructional design, it's not just digitally moving something. It's really understanding employee psychology. For example, we just launched an app called Happily. It's a very cool app. It's basically a very gamified way to give points. So each employee can give each other points if you help each other, right? But we also use it and to understand the pulse of an employee. So you get more points when you answer questions. So the more questions you answer, and it's simple questions like, how do you feel today? You like your boss, blah, blah, blah. Now all this data comes to us and we know, okay, I can tell, like this morning I can say, hey, I think my corporate team, they have some problems. Caroline, you got a few raids happening there, there's some morale issues. So there's a lot of digital tools that are a lot more powerful than actually face-to-face. Because I can sit here and I can know my entire and I say, hey, I've got 3 pockets in my company that have problems. Because I can see, and then for the people who are playing, it's just games. Because we're getting points, and more points we get half day off, we get this, we get that, right? So there are tools out there, but don't let the tool master you. You got to know what you want, and then say, okay, what tools out there that I can use to leverage it. And so you have to be very clever about how you translate things to digital.
How does a leader in this particular age of post-MCO, where social distancing may be there, or maybe even a new evolution of the company may need to come about because the new offering is the new normal of the market. How does a leader continue to be as effective post-MCO as he or she may have been pre-MCO?
So I'll share a little exercise I did with my team last week. So after the second week, I thought to myself and I said, look, this is crazy because everyone is saying they're very busy. And I cannot imagine that everybody's busy because we got zero revenue. So they're busy, but I feel that we're doing all. So a very simple tool that I kind of learned is this: look, we need to look at all the work that we have, and let's just tier the work into 4 tiers. So tier 1 is all the work that we must do. If we don't do, the ship will sink, right? So that's tier 1 work. Tier 2 is very important and vital work, but if you don't do it, you will not really sink, but it will help set you up for the future. Meaning, if I do this work, I close some deals, post-MCO, maybe I got work to do, right? So these are important and strategic, very important, very strategic stuff. Number 3 is meaningful work, but not vital. So in my company, we do a lot of community work. So we run this program called MAD, which is making a difference. And I told my MAD team, I was like, look, the work that you do, I think are tier 3. Very important, meaningful work, but really not vital for us. And the last part is externally driven work, or what I call low priority work, which is basically a lot of people who say, hey, come and help me, talk here, do this, do that. So when you start to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 work, then you start to go to the organization and give a clarity and say, guys, I want us to focus only on tier 1 and tier 2 work, right? So the entire organization, because it's a crisis, right? Most organizations, I don't know about your property organizations, but in my type of organization, it's a crisis. We are going to die, right? If we don't get our act together in the next 2 or 3 months, we're dead, right? I won't have the cash flow to last, right? In spite of, having a little bit to, and many others are worse, right? I think in the next month or so, they may go, right? So to us, it's like, okay, if in a crisis, you have to be clear. The entire organization needs to rally around on only tier 1 and tier 2 work. Tier 1 work is the work that we must do to survive, right? So what does that mean? For me, very simple. We must keep our organization alive, which means we have to manage our cash. We have to raise cash. We have to find, new ways to get grants, get this or whatever it is to keep ourselves alive. The second thing is we need to get new forms of revenue and we need to get it in quick. So, and so that's it, 2 things only, right? And when you really start to think about it, in every company, usually when you talk about extremely critical things you need to do, right? It boils down to 2, maybe 3 things. And then you get your whole organization crystal clear. For us, in the next 2 months, we only do these 2 things. And that's it, And that clarity, right, is very important. Because I think many times as leaders, we let our organizations continue as normal. But I told everyone, I said, I don't care. If you are doing tier 3 work and somebody is doing tier 1 work and need your help, you drop everything and do tier 1 work. Because today, it's really about being very crystal clear, having that absolute clarity on what the whole company must work together on and be driven towards that. And to me, that's leadership now in a crisis. Is to be extremely clear of what we need to do and making sure everybody is aligned to it and everybody runs the same way.
Well, the challenging part is actually how to get everybody to align. Because some people, because they need the job, they will tell you that they're aligned. They will tell you that they will say yes to whatever you put them through. But at the end of the day, if they're detractors, it's going to be very challenging.
Yeah, and this is where I feel we have to make some hard calls. So for me, after I announced this, a couple of days ago, I say, here's what's our tier 1, here's what's our tier 2. Now, if they come back to us and say, hey, this guy is still doing tier 3 work, then that at some point in time, our cash flow is such that I'm saying that I have to let go people. So it gives you a great matrix to say, who should be removed, right? You want to keep the guys doing tier 1, tier 2 work, but you can start moving out the guys doing tier 3 and tier 4 work, because really, it's not helping you today. It might help you in 8 months time, but will you be around to benefit from that, right? And so why bother doing things that does not bring you now? Because today is managing in a crisis. It's not managing in, I don't have the luxury of saying I have this, a couple of months, let's work on this and be a little bit more long-term, right? Because in 3 months you could close shop, right? So you got to be very, very, very targeted and be very aggressive and assertive to get that done.
Do you say that, would you consider yourself managing by crisis right now or crisis mode? Everything that you're doing, you're looking at the lens, okay, 2 months from now, what's going to happen? 1 month from now, what's going to happen? Where's the cash flow coming in? Is that the predetermining factor?
I've started to do that. I mean, I think about, and this is pre-lockdown. I started to look at the guys and say, let's look at our cash, and we say, look, because we started to see revenue, start to tank. The problem with us was Chinese New Year was in January, so it's a dead month. Then you got for us, right? I mean, we are not a retail organization, right? I mean, so in February, we started to see the effects, because a lot of our work is with MNCs, so we started to see all the big MNCs start to stop work because they just don't want to do big events. Or any small event, anything more than 15 people, 20 people, they don't want to do that, right? So then we had the lockdown, so somewhere in end February, I was like, look, guys, we have to look. We're going to have to do something drastic here. And I started to manage, and managing crisis is slightly different. Sometimes you have to say, look, there's no negotiation on this, right? Because for 2 weeks, I let you all debate and so on, but now I don't care. We're going to do this. We're going to launch this product. And we're going to launch it tomorrow. So whether we stay up to midnight or don't sleep tonight, tomorrow morning at 10, we're going to launch this thing. How you do it? Let's just do it. And we did it, right? And people are excited. Now we're selling that, right? It's like, okay, you guys go and do that, and the ops team go and run that and manage that. Now let's go into product 2. Let's take the next piece and let's do it. So we're starting with virtual team building. We're starting with virtual coaching. We're running a camp now. I mean, my youth team, right? I don't know. We just do it. I don't understand. I don't know how to pack platform. I said, don't care. We do it. And within a week, everybody was able to do it. So I think there's a lot of excuses out there, but I think as leaders, we have to be crystal clear what we want to do. And if we don't have that clarity, we need to take a day or two off, shut off, and say, what's that clarity? And I had to do that, right? I mean, I do like to shut down and say, look, I don't want to listen to anybody. I already understood what we have to do. I understand the situation. I know this business. I understand this industry. What's value add? How can I do this? And then once I'm clear, this is what we're going to do. Then you just get the team 100% rallying, and I said, just do it, right? Now, after they do it, now that they are at a point where the product is out, they're doing process improvements, they're making the product better. Okay, you do your own stuff. I don't want to disturb you, because that's what you guys are good at. You guys are good at taking a product and building it to the next level. But I think when it comes to crisis, nobody can think, because they're all like scared. There's fear. And because of that, people are like, they're looking to us, as bosses to somehow give an answer. And if we are in a situation that we are like, I don't know, you don't care, you don't know, you just figure it out. Whether you don't sleep for 5 days, you just go online, you figure it out, and then you say, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do, and then be very resolute, get it done.
Roshan, just one last question before I let you go. In your process of shutting this out, everything to find out what your clarity point is, can I ask you, what was your guiding principle to help you find what your clarity point was or is?
Yeah. So for me, it was really about, as I look, so you look at the customer, and I look at myself, right? As a customer, what would I pay for in this scenario? What would I really pay for? Assuming, let's say I'm a person who's buying a property or whatever your customer is, what would I pay for? What service would I pay for? And what do I need? Right? And when I start empathizing, and really that's why, I just wrote about, the comparison between Trump and Lee Hsien Loong and our own Prime Minister, Muhyiddin, and said, look, the empathy wasn't there. Because when you don't put yourself in another's shoes, you don't understand what they're thinking. You cannot understand what they're willing to give and what they're willing to buy. What is important for the customer, right? When I started to put that, it became crystal clear, if I am the CEO of a company, an SME, or I'm a CEO of a multinational, what's in my mind, right? I'm trying to figure out how to save my business. I'm trying to figure out how to keep my employees safe. I'm trying to do this. So as I start thinking like that, I say, what kind of service can I offer them in the space that I'm in that can solve that problem? And then it becomes relatively simple and clear, right? How? And then the question becomes, I may not be offering this service. How do I translate to the service? Because I'm offering something very similar that I can quickly, and I have the manpower of all this, but I'm not offering this exactly. How do I transition? Then it becomes, okay, how do I get my whole team involved to figure out the transition? But I think the key starting point is this: be very clear that we have to be very empathetic as leaders, right? What would people want? So I mean, if you are, selling a whole bunch of retail stuff, and then you say, look, if you're in a crisis and people are only buying masks and food and so on and so forth, how do you figure out, and we did it with a lot of social enterprises, right? They've morphed from, selling little gimmicks and so to selling masks, to selling food products, to selling this, right? So they've managed to transition because they say they understand nobody is going to buy things like cute little things or paintings, or who's going to, some of these craft from the Aura, they're not going to buy it, right? Because it's not going to happen, right? So how do you do something more meaningful, right? So I think that fundamentally helped me, is just to ask that question and put yourself in your customer's shoes. You put yourself in whatever, and it can be a non-customer. So don't limit yourself to customer, right? Which, ask yourself, is there a market where why am I not selling to women, or why am I not selling to this market? And they may be a non-customer, and say, if I were selling what I do to them, how would I do it? And they say, hey, maybe there's a market for that, because maybe they will want such things, right? So sometimes don't limit yourself to customers. Look at the non-customers also, the people that should be buying your stuff that shouldn't, that isn't, And as long as your service is needed, and I say this properly, as long as your service is needed, because some of us have to have a real reality check. Maybe our service is like that training provider that is providing training, content training that is actually not needed. But people are just humoring that person because for the many number of years, that's how, our HR person, they don't know better. They just do the training over and over again, right? And so that is actually, in a crisis, people are saying, I'm not going to waste money on nice to have. I'm going to focus on must do, right? And you need to be in the tier 1 of somebody else. And then guaranteed you will have revenue streams. And then you figure out how to build on that,
Roshan, isn't this an exercise that you shouldn't wait for a crisis to only ask? You should constantly be asking.
Absolutely. And I try to do that. But here's the problem. The crisis helps the team to see it. So, a lot of things, right? For me, it's like, I got it, and I started a digital business a couple of years ago. Nobody, like, why waste time? We're fine, the training business. But, today, right, that digital business gives us ability to do a lot of stuff that my training business can do. Now, if I didn't have that foresight, now, that's what we do as CEOs, right? I mean, we have to constantly be thinking like that. But what a tragedy or a crisis does, it crystallizes the entire organization to come together. So nobody is questioning me and saying, oh, digital was a stupid investment today, right? So all that millions, like, no one's questioning you, because like, oh, thank goodness, we were so, and suddenly it's, everybody will join. Oh yeah, we were very, we had such great hindsight to invest in digital, blah, blah, blah. That's great, right? But, sometimes that's the job of a CEO, right? We got to make those risks. We got to take those risks. And if nobody comes along, we do something. And then when the time comes, like this crisis, then everything comes together. Now, if you haven't done that, you better do this. Because if we haven't done that soul searching and saying, that reality check, is our product market fit real? Is the products that we offer something that's real, that can be used in the market today, post-COVID, right? If it's not, right, best time, just close shop, and then spend the next 3 months thinking about how to reinvent yourself, because your entire capability of your organization is built on the old product, right? And so I told my whole team, I said, if you guys cannot transition to this new one, as we start to lay off, and that will come, right, at some point in time, because we are introducing something new, we have to educate the market, right? But then you have a very good basis. Say the guys that cannot transition are the guys that will probably lose their jobs first, right? And nothing like a crisis to make people want to learn faster and grow, because if it is true, right, that 20% of the employment, there'll be about 20% unemployment. US is like 25%. If really those numbers are true, right, you either go to China to get a job, right, because all the jobs are going to be in China, or we figure out how to reinvent ourselves and figure out how to capture back the market. So it's very limited choices, and crisis helps us to really be crystal clear about what we're trying to do.
Great. Roshan, thank you so much for your time and so much for your sharing. Very passionate to speaking with you. And I guess the conclusion at the end of the day is continue delivering value, because if you don't, and if you stop delivering value, then there is no A game for you anymore. Your competitors are going to come
I think so. And it's going to be tough. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's going to be very tough. I including myself, right? I mean, I've got loans. I took all these loans to do stuff, and I got to figure out so many things. But I think the good news is that it gives us an opportunity to reinvent ourselves before we die. It's like a frog that's being boiled, right? We will be boiled until we die. Now, what crisis is suddenly hot water and we jump, right? So we got a chance to jump out and reinvent ourselves, in a way. So don't look at it negatively. We would have died anyway. If we continue this journey, this is an opportunity to just not die as the frog in the boiling pot, but slowly die, but quickly get out and figure out a way to live longer.
Excellent.
All right, thanks.
Thank you so much, Roshan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in today. And we have just had Roshan Thiran share his innermost thoughts with regard to leadership, especially in the digital era post-MCO. Thanks again, Roshan. Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. All
Have a
right,
good
take
day.
care.
Yeah, bye-bye.